Welcome, friends, to this episode of the Sync Your Life podcast. I am so grateful to be joined today by Jen Delveaux. She is the podcast host and the author of a podcast and book called Not Today Cancer. We're going to be talking about all that stuff today, including her story, her personal journey with cancer for both herself and her husband. I've been following Jen for several years on social media. I'm not sure how I ever learned about you in the beginning, but I've been connected to you through social media, and I've seen this story sort of unfold, and I've really just admired your transparency and your willingness to share the story and all the struggle that's involved with it. But you do it in such a positive light, and you're doing it in such a way that's inspiring to so many people. I did a little bit of digging before this episode started, and I realized in my digging that 1 in 8 women will develop breast cancer at some point in their life. And so this is such a crucial topic. My podcast is dedicated to educating women about hormone health so that they are not a victim of something like cancer, or so that they can do everything in their power from a lifestyle perspective to be as healthy as they can be. So when I started hearing your story and watching you on social, I thought, this is somebody that I want to have on my show, because I think you can speak into this in such a way that will illuminate both the issue of breast cancer, but also in a way that helps women navigate it for themselves. So I think everybody listening has been affected in some way. And so we'll dive more into that as we go. But just to get us started, Jen, welcome to the show. And if you would just tell us your story for people who've not heard of you before.
Yeah, thank you so much for having me here. It's just I love sharing my story on other podcast episodes. It's fun being a guest instead of the podcast interviewer. So, yeah, my story really starts way back in 2009 when my husband was diagnosed with brain cancer. And right around that same time that he was diagnosed, I just started getting kind of on a healthier track. And so thankfully I had that in my life already because I knew that exercise was so helpful for our mindset and, feeling good in our own bodies and just living that healthier life. And so when he was diagnosed, though, our worlds turned upside down and everything just happened so fast. And then he had, it came back quickly 18 months later. But during that 18 months, I had a lot of time to really focus and research. So we changed a lot of things back then. And my husband he's had 3 brain surgeries, chemo, radiation, the works. And he's doing well. He has short-term memory issues, and they don't typically radiate the brain twice. So he couldn't go back to work in 2011 after that because he had a stroke and complications. But thankfully, I had been diving into really helping other women with their health and fitness and doing my own coaching business. And then so 2019, he had his 3rd brain surgery and ended up being a grade 4. We really, truly, he is a walking miracle, truly. And so he's taught me so much about attitude, and he laughs every day. He doesn't sweat the small stuff. We have fun. We've created a ton of memories. But so then all of a sudden in 2021, it was interesting. Let me go back a second. I kept seeing the number 1111. And I'm not like this total spiritual woo-woo person, but I mean, it was like every day I'm like, what does this mean? I don't understand why I keep seeing it. And then my husband kept seeing it, and I would see it on the microwave, or somebody would call me at 11:11, or they would leave a voice memo that was 1 minute, 11 seconds, insane. It would not stop. And I dug into it a little bit, and it was really pay attention to your thoughts, and maybe the angels are trying to, whatever, they're supporting you. And so I thought to myself, am I past my mammogram date? And I decided to call, and I was just by a couple weeks, but I scheduled that mammogram and I got the call back. And this happens a lot. So for women that have to go in for a mammogram, when they call you back because they might see something, it is so common. The machines are so good right now that they can detect the smallest thing. So there's a lot of fear behind it. So just because you're called back doesn't mean it's going to turn into something. So when I was called back, I truly thought it's going to be fine. I didn't think anything of it. And I went in for the repeat mammogram. And so it's 2021. So they're still really weird about having people with you. So I was by myself, and I went in for the ultrasound, repeat or sorry, repeat mammogram. And then if they still see it, then they send you back for the ultrasound, which they did. And then in the ultrasound room, like if they say, I'm coming back with the doctor, then you're in trouble. And I was laying there and I just saw a really serious look on her face. And she was in a particular area for a long time. And I just was like, oh my gosh, this is not going to be good. And she said, I'll be back with the doctor. And I was like, okay, this really isn't good. And he walked in a few minutes later and he's like, so you're not feeling anything? And, he had these like just a sad look on his face. And I'm like, no, I'm like, I haven't felt anything, but I'm going to be honest. I'm not the monthly mammogram or feel it on the first. You see that everywhere. I was not doing my breast self exams. I just wasn't. But still, even after I knew it was there, I still couldn't feel it. So it was kind of hidden. But he came in and told me this news. He's like, we do really think this is cancer. And I was like, okay. He's like, do you have any questions? I'm like, no. And I left and I was like, there's no way. There's no way. There's no freaking way husband and wife can both have cancer. There's no way. And so he said, they'll call you later on this week and you'll have a ultrasound scheduled next week sometime. And I called my neighbor. Weirdly, my neighbor just went through this. And so I filled her in and she's like, well, the good news is that you're not going straight back for an ultrasound, or I mean, for a biopsy, because then there would really be concern with that. So I get home and I'm literally home for 20 minutes and the phone calls and it's the doctor. And they're like, we need you back like tomorrow morning, ASAP. There's like 95% chance we're sure this is cancer. And then I just like lost it, like the tears just rolling. Like I didn't even know who I was because I'm the strong one in our family. I'm the one that takes care of everything. When Darren was diagnosed in 2009, our roles completely changed, where he took care of the family more so financially and just kind of was like the guy that took care of all the things. All of a sudden, I was that person. And I had been that person for like 12 years. And to all of a sudden, me be in his shoes was so shocking to me. And I couldn't handle it. And I think like when somebody gets a cancer diagnosis and you hear the word cancer, I hear this from a lot of women that I interview, you immediately assume your life is over because cancer is the scariest word in the dictionary. And really, that's not the case. I mean, so many women can truly thrive through this and they can live a really long life. But when you're initially given that diagnosis, fear just totally consumes you. So I just kind of like, I am the type of person who's a researcher and I dive into what I can do. How can I take part in this? And I changed everything. It's interesting. My husband and I are so different. He changed nothing. I think the big thing that changed with him is he released all stress and worry and he just enjoyed every minute. I was like, okay, I'm going to listen to what the doctor says. I'm going to do what they say, whatever they tell me to do. But what can I do on my end? And when somebody's newly diagnosed, I don't recommend Googling your diagnosis. Like I didn't do that. I just Googled like, how can I help myself? And so I dove deeply into different healing modalities that we can dive into. But I basically changed everything. And I used to get the question too all the time, like, I don't understand. You're already healthy and fit. What's the point if this could happen to you? That was a great question that I got one time. I'm like, oh my gosh, so important to stay healthy because I'll tell you what, me getting through the changes that I made and the diagnosis was super simple. And somebody who's starting at square one and doesn't have the understanding of the very basics of health or fitness, they're starting at the beginning. And that's so hard to like think of all the massive changes that they should be making. And a lot of them don't because it's so overwhelming. For me, I just tweaked a few things and, really have been able to thrive through this diagnosis. Sorry, long-winded.
Yeah, no, that was great. That was great. And I took some notes because there's some things I want to definitely point out. One is, the first thing I want to say is just, I feel like I've said this so many times with different podcast guests, but it's definitely pertinent here, which is I love when people take a struggle of some kind, and they turn it into their message. And so I love that this story of yours, which is not an easy thing to navigate, is something that you're still saying, you know what, I feel this desire to now share it and to share my story with other people so that they can maybe learn about this for themselves or, you know, realize that they're not invincible. I mean, I know for me, my first mammogram was a year ago, which I was 38 years old, which was probably too late for me. I had a history of hormone imbalance. So far everything has been fine, but I know even just listening to other women that take my course and women that I work with in the hormone field, it's so crucial that we take our health into our own hands. And I know for me,
Totally.
my personal story, I mean, not to go way far back, but my dad was diagnosed with cancer when I was 12 years old. He was given 2 weeks to live. And it was a form of
Wow.
leukemia.
What
He ended
kind
up
of
having,
cancer?
it was myelocytic leukemia, and he had a bone marrow transplant.
Mhm.
Thankfully, his brother was a match, and that he's still alive to this day. He did have some cerebellum
Wow.
toxicity from the chemotherapy, which I guess only affects like 1% of people. So he has some lifestyle issues that he deals with now. But that shaped me as a 12-year-old because I witnessed that journey of him just, of course, like very similar to what you said about Darren, releasing the stress and the worry and just saying, this is
Mhm.
the card I've been dealt and this is what I'm going to do. And I'm going to face it with adversity and strength and courage. And there's something powerful to that. But also just for me, you know, when people ask me like, how do you stay motivated? Like, how do you exercise every day? And how do you take your nutrition system? Like, I could never do that. And I always think to myself, like, you know, not that that ever could have been prevented in my dad's case necessarily, but, or in anyone's case, but I look at health as something that, you know what, I'm going to control all the stuff that I can control, right? Like I'm going to do
Mhm.
everything in my power so that if something happens to me, I'm sort of, I feel like I'm kind of in the driver's seat. I don't feel like you
Totally.
know, behind, I guess, you know, and I want to make sure that I'm in charge of my nutrition and I'm moving my body and I'm putting it in a peak state so that if something was to happen to me, I could handle it. But I
Yeah.
love that you're turning this journey into your message and you're sharing it out with social media and the world. The other thing that I want to just say too is, you know, maybe just we could start here with women listening. What
Mhm.
would you say to the woman listening who maybe they're healthy and fit and they take their health seriously, but maybe they haven't gotten that mammogram, or maybe it's not a priority for them, or the self checks you discussed, you hadn't been self checking. Like, what are some initial things that women need to be making a priority?
Yeah, definitely a mammogram for sure. Like I truly wouldn't have felt mine without it. And I think that, I mean, it truly saved my life because mine is, well, it was early stage. So they caught it. So it was small. So there's the staging is great. So I'm an, it's an, invasive ductal carcinoma, stage 1, grade 2, ERPR positive, HER2 negative. So breast cancer is very complex and everybody is kind of slightly different. And it's weird, you know, like Darren's like brain cancer, stage 4. Like it was really easy to understand, but all of a sudden with breast cancer, there's a lot to it. But I was stage 1. So that means the size. Staging is always the size. And then the grading is the aggressiveness of the characteristics of the type of cancer you have. And so mine was a little bit more aggressive. So thankfully we caught it with a mammogram. So definitely get your mammogram scheduled. It's so important. Self breast exams. In fact, I have a way to do it in the book, but that should be done. It's a actually somebody that is still having their period. I was not. I was forced into menopause. So when you're diagnosed with a hormone positive breast cancer, they want all of the estrogen, everything out of your body. So you're blasted into it overnight. So that was tricky for me to get through too. But yeah, just making sure that you are doing those. What I was going to say is if you still are having your period, I think you do it like 3 days after. Like you don't want to do it while you're having your period because you can feel certain lumps in there, but just getting to know your breasts, even looking at them, you know, like looking in the mirror and noticing that they all look the same. And if you're feeling anything, I think our intuition is screaming at us when we need something to be checked out, really paying attention. So if you've ever thought like, I should do this, or something is looking different, or even like if your nipple looks different, like lumps or bumps that you're not sure about, it's so important to get that checked out.
Yeah, for sure. For sure. I know for me personally, like sometimes you can think in your mind, like, well, I feel fine, right? Like in your
Yeah,
case, you're like, I feel okay, but yet it's still important to go have those checks. I,
absolutely.
so I want to talk about mindset because obviously you mentioned fear sort of hit you first,
Yep.
but then you've been able to really thrive like through the diagnosis
Mhm.
and you know you talked about how you were sort of the family facilitator and the person who kind of kept the level head and the strong one, and then here you were facing the struggle yourself. So I'd love to hear like how did you really take control of that mindset
Yeah.
and sort of take ownership of your diagnosis.
Yeah, it's the hardest part. I mean, in all the women that I've talked to, it's interesting. People think, when you have that diagnosis, you go through the treatment and you're going for the surgery or the radiation or the chemo, and you've got so much support, family cheering you on. You've got doctors involved every step of the way. You're going in for weekly appointments. And then all of a sudden it's done. And I'm not kidding. You are in a fog. Everything happens so quick, you really don't even understand what's happening, and you're just in a fog through it all. And then all of a sudden, you're like done with treatment, and you have people like, "Yeah, you did it." And all of a sudden, you're like, "What just happened? What did I just go through?" And a lot of women, so many women have PTSD and they go into depression at this point. And then they feel guilty. Like, I don't understand. Like, I just got through it. I'm doing well. Many women, not many women, but some people don't get through it. Like, why am I upset right now? I did this. I'm good right now. I'm cancer free. It's because it is PTSD and it is traumatic. The things that doctors are telling you, they have to tell you worst case scenario. They have to tell you all the facts, and that goes into our head, and we are truly in fight or flight when that happens. And so you have to let your body feel these emotions. You can't stop it. Like I remember when Darren was going through it, I was a strong person. And I wouldn't let anything out. I didn't cry. I had to be strong for my family. I was good. But those emotions have to come out somehow. So letting yourself cry, letting yourself be angry, letting yourself be pissed that you just went through all this. It's okay, and feel it. But then you have to have things and ways that are going to help you get through it. Like, I don't know where I would be without meditation. So, being in the health and fitness world, we always know meditation is great. I tried to do meditation for years. I'd be like, oh, go down there for 2 minutes. I'd be like, I got so many things to do, and I'd be out of there. So, when I was extreme fear, and it was when I had to go in for the biopsy. And I was literally thinking, I don't know if mentally I can drive myself to the hospital right now because I was so consumed with fear. And remember, Darren could not go with me. I was just like, I might have to have him just drive me and sit in the parking lot because I am emotionally not okay right now. And I grabbed my phone and I searched the app Unplug, which is a meditation app, which I swear by. There is a cost to it. It's a yearly cost, but I do have a 30-day link free that I'll give to you to give to your audience. I get no kickback from it. I just swear by Unplug, and I've had her on my show, the CEO, Susie. She's amazing, Susie Schwartz. I grabbed it and I went to stress and anxiety, and I found one called Your Superpower Calm. And I put it in, or I played it, put in my headphones, and I laid on the ground. And it was the first time in whatever, 48-hour period that I finally felt like calm. And I was like, okay, I can do this. I can do this. So that healing modality has stuck with me ever since. And I think people think like, oh, meditation, you have to be sitting cross-legged and hands up, and you have to be in this like pot. If you just sit there and calm your brain for just a few minutes a day, it's so powerful. So I just do 10 minutes a day, and it's changed everything. So that's one of the things that I don't know where I would be without it. I also think for me, taking control gives me a sense of power over this. You feel so powerless when you are diagnosed with cancer, but taking taking action on certain things gives you some control back or some power back. So by changing my diet, I knew immediately for me, I was a big keto eater before. I didn't eat a lot of fruits or vegetables. Oh my gosh, fruits have sugar. Like, so weird that I even thought that, but I did. And I was focused on more of fitting in the skinny jeans and not longevity. So my diet was not great. It was just, not it was fine compared to a lot of people. Like, I haven't had fast food in I don't even know how many years, 20 years, probably 15 years. But I still, it wasn't for longevity. It was to fit into the skinny jeans. And so I literally was scared to put anything in my food, my body for a little bit. And then I slowly started adding in like some raw vegetables and fruit. And I decided to just try out vegan. I'm mostly plant-based. I eat wild caught fish. I don't do the fake meats. Fake meats are terrible. So there's a lot of unhealthy vegans out there. I would never do, God, what's that meat that's out everywhere? I don't even know the name of it.
Like the Beyond Burgers and the
Beyond
Impossible
Burger.
Burgers.
Oh my gosh,
Ugh.
you guys,
Yeah.
look at the ingredient level of a Beyond Burger. There's so much garbage in it. You're better off having like grass-fed burger. So I'm not against that, but I do think somebody that's been diagnosed with breast cancer, actually, I think anybody, if you're eating meat, it should be more of a garnish and your plate is loaded up with more vegetables and, so that's what I think. But everybody has their own opinion on that. So I changed my diet. I changed the way I exercise. I started slowing down. I started walking more. I used to think walking was such a waste of time, like so silly. And I just am like calmer in my headspace. I don't let the little things stress me out. And when the negative thoughts creep in, because they will, the fear creeps in, you just have to change what you're doing. I've even heard from somebody, I can't remember who I heard this from, but she puts a rubber band around her wrist. And if she's thinking negative thoughts, because this can happen in anything, this isn't breast cancer. We can all have fear or negative thinking about ourselves. Like, snap it and start telling yourself you love yourself or something really positive about yourself. We got to stop the negativity on ourselves. Us as women, my gosh, what we do to ourselves is insane. So I love myself a lot more.
Yeah. Yeah. So I wrote down, meditation, nutrition, walking, slowing down on the exercise, in addition to like the medical treatments that you were being given and being told
Oh
to
yeah.
do. And I love that too, because I think, again, it gets you your control back. I mean, it gives you your power. Like you feel like you said, in something where you feel like you're powerless, it makes you feel like you're in control of something, right? And it's your day to day. You can control that you go for a walk. You can control the food that you're putting into your body. Yeah. And I'm curious too, like, I want to pause and kind of go back a little bit to this topic of meditation and breath work. My listeners, if they've been listening for any amount of time, have heard me talk about this being one of my primary struggles. I would say
Really?
Exercise and nutrition are, to me now, I mean, of course, it's been a journey over the course of the last dozen years, but they feel easy to me. They feel simple, whereas the being still and the slowing down tends to be a struggle for me. And I see this with a lot of other women too. And I remember, of course, I always say my yoga instructor, who's my good friend, will probably listen to this and laugh, because I'm the girl who used to just count my way out of Shavasana. Like I would be looking at the clock in yoga class, like how much longer is this going to be, and how still do I really have to be? But someone recommended to me, and I'm saying this in case there's someone listening who's like that. Someone said to me, it doesn't have to be, like you said, legs crossed and thumb, your fingers up, like you're doing some sort of alms or something. It doesn't have to be anything like that. It can actually start as a moving meditation. And that's actually how I got started, was combining a walk with meditation, like going for just a 10-minute walk, just get out of my house, listen to something like Unplug, right? Listen to something like a meditation app and just follow along. Like just,
Yeah. Unplug.
just say, yeah,
Unplug actually has walking meditations too.
yeah, it's perfect. And
Yeah.
that's how I got started. And then when I finally felt comfortable, it was almost like I couldn't let go, I mean, it's essentially like, that is what it is. I mean, I couldn't let go. And actually had a trauma informed therapist on the podcast who, when I told her that, she said, what trauma is holding you back from letting go? And it was just like, that was probably my biggest epiphany and growth moment, was hearing her ask that question. Like, what's keeping me from letting that go? But moving with the meditation was how I started. And then slowly getting into even just 5 minutes in the morning, setting my mind, right? I have a 6-year-old and a 2-year-old. So sometimes that's my moment. Like I need that moment before I enter the room with them. And it is so huge. And I think it's such a powerful thing because as you're saying, you're entering this fear, right? You even said like, I didn't know if I could even drive myself to the treatment. You're living in this state of fight or flight. Like your cortisol is not working with you in a cancer diagnosis, right? I mean, it's all flags are up. It's like, you got to survive, not thrive, right? And how do you thrive? By taking control of that mindset and by slowing yourself down and doing that
Getting yourself
meditation.
back into that parasympathetic state is
Yeah,
key. Even
absolutely.
I'll catch myself now because I'm so similar to you. I must be. I'm like, go, go, go. And I sometimes will react. Even like Darren might ask me something. I love him to death, but he forgets short-term memory. And sometimes I react and I'll be like, oh, I'm so sorry. I didn't mean to react that way. And just catching yourself. It's okay. We're all human. We're going to make mistakes. We're going to react, in ways that we don't want to, but it's just catching yourself and changing it right away is super helpful. The other
Yeah.
things I did do too that also helped me, and I really never did this prior to my diagnosis, was acupuncture. And I think you have with listeners that also are in perimenopause or going through menopause. This is hugely helpful for menopause. And he also he is an herbalist as well. So he's into Chinese herbs. So he's helped me a lot with that. Another part that gave me control. And then energy healing. And again, that was just like kind of Reiki type stuff, just where she would bring me back, like you said, the trauma. We've all had trauma in our lives and it gets stuck. And that stuck energy comes out as dis-ease, which is disease within the body. So it's really important to work through that trauma that you've had and not shut it down. I had things shut down for years. So I was like willing to try anything. I'm like, you tell me about it and I will try it. And I share all that in my book because I kind of wanted to share it for other people and be able to share my experience with it.
Yeah. 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 So, I mean, acupuncture is one thing that I've not tried. I have a history of,
Great.
of chronic migraine, but that's something that I'd love to dig more into. So I'd love for you to share more about what does it look like to go to
Oh my
acupuncture? I mean, I've
gosh.
got like the pictures in my mind of what happens, but
Yes.
what's the experience like?
You definitely need to go. Like anybody that has any sort of chronic pain, you are going to be shocked. Even my son does this. Like, so I'm so mad I didn't know about it earlier. He has Ashkensathers, which is, I think I'm saying that right, but that's the knee where as he's growing, his knees hurt so bad, like he couldn't play some sports because of it. And he, after 4 sessions, totally fine. It's the
Wow.
weirdest thing. So basically, I was scared too, and I didn't know what was going to happen. I thought it was going to hurt, and it doesn't. He asks you questions. Well, I bet everybody's different. My acupuncturist, he'll like look at your eyes. You have to meet with them first, and they kind of get to know you, get to know what's happening. They look at your tongue, they feel your pulse, and and they put needles. Like if you have pain, like if you have pain in a shoulder, they put these needle in a special place and he starts working it right then and there. Like you can feel relief immediately. Sometimes it takes a couple sessions going to, but for me, he just helped me get into that calmer state, but he's also helped me throughout this whole journey. So I'm on hormone blocking meds, which have so many lovely side effects. And a lot of women, it's crazy. 40% of women don't even go on the hormone blocking meds or quit because of these side effects. But I don't have them because I believe it's because of acupuncture. If I start to have any joint pain or anything, I go in. I was going weekly when I was first diagnosed, and now I go about every 3 weeks. But they basically, he sticks needles in you wherever you think you need it and you just lay there for like 40 minutes and I go into this crazy zen. I'm like, wait, 45 minutes is up. Like, I don't even know what happened. And I'm
Wow.
like you, where I was at first like, wait, but can't I have my phone? You can't because you have needles all over you. So you can't like do anything for 45 minutes. And it is like the most zen I get. Like I'm like, can we just do this every day?
Yeah. Yeah.
It's incredible.
That's probably the only form of like, holistic treatment that I've not tried for migraine, but it's funny because recently my functional medicine doctor mentioned hyperbaric oxygen chambers.
Yeah.
And so I was like looking into it and I thought, no way. Like if I can't handle Shavasana, I am not going in that tube. Like you're going to have to
Oh, I
sedate
know.
me to go in there. But regardless, I guess, you know, you do what you need to do.
Try
And
acupuncture. I'm really curious if it works for you.
yeah,
Like I hear in the beautiful thing, we were just talking about this. I was with him like last week, and he said that it's finally coming out for doctors, like pain doctors, to start recommending this before they actually get them addicted to like some sort of
yeah,
drug,
yeah.
like because it really helps that much.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. One thing that I love about this conversation is it seems like I meet a lot of people who are very similar to me as far as meeting both the medical world and the sort of holistic healing world somewhere in the middle, right? Like saying, okay, I understand and appreciate when I need modern medicine, but I also know and appreciate how I can take control of my lifestyle and my nutrition. I want to come back a little bit to nutrition. You mentioned being mostly plant-based.
Mhm.
So I'd love to know, you know, I don't know if you said this or not, but like, was that a switch that you made? Like, were you consuming meat before the diagnosis?
Yes, not
Yes.
red
And
meat.
so,
I've never been big red meat eater. I don't know why. I just never have. But I was like chicken, turkey, eggs, dairy,
right.
like everything, like pretty much for every meal. Like it was
Everything else.
focused on meat,
Mm-hmm.
like
And then, yeah,
turkey and like all that stuff, fish. Like I ate a lot of meat, not a lot of vegetables. I mean, just basic ones that I'd eat the same things every week. I really focus more on fruits. Like I have like a lot of fiber. Like I focus more on a fiber diet, um, adding more fiber because fiber really helps our bodies to like rid our body of extra estrogen. Like there's so many benefits to fiber. It's crazy. So I have a lot of fruit. I have oatmeal, like steel cut oats. I'm really careful now with what I look out for is the oils that I'm using. I only use extra virgin olive oil, avocado oil, and I don't use coconut oil that much, but because I just don't for me with breast cancer. I don't know. It just has a lot of fat in it. And I don't think that's a bad fat. I'm not saying that. Coconut oil is great. I just minimize it only due to my breast cancer.
yeah,
But so I really look at my oils. I look at the ingredients. I really try to get, if I'm going to eat something packaged, like as far as bars go, let's just say a bar. I would never, the protein bars out there are loaded. So the only bar that I'll eat if I'm like in a rush is a Lara bar because you can
mm-hmm.
see it's literally like 2 or 3 ingredients. Doesn't have any added sugar. That's the other thing is I really try to stay away from added sugar, not only for my diagnosis, but for somebody listening that's struggling with their hormones. Like added sugar is not the thing we want. And I stay away from processed foods. I really make a big salad every day and I just load a bunch of different vegetables into it. I try to eat a diversity of vegetables and fruits. And, when I have pasta, it's a chickpea pasta. I don't do that very often. I stay away from like just white bread and pastries, and I don't do any of that. I mean, I
Yeah,
don't even care. I don't miss it. Like, I don't like, I'm like, oh,
yeah,
there's like a cake and some, I don't care to have that. I would love a piece of dark chocolate. I'm all about that. But I don't care about like the sweet bakery stuff like I
yeah,
used to. It's crazy how once you change, and I understand it's difficult to change because I am one that literally used to be addicted to hot tamales and red vine licorice. I kid you not. Like it was insane. But once I took it out of my body, this was like 11 years ago. I took candy out of my body. I have not turned back since. Candy.
yeah,
I've not had a
mm-hmm.
piece of candy in like 11 years. But
Yeah,
then all the hidden sugars. So now you have to look at like all your dressings and
yep.
all the stuff. There's so many hidden sugars in everything. Your pasta sauce, like so many things.
Yeah, my 6-year-old started kindergarten just a few weeks ago, and so
Mhm.
this summer she has a few food sensitivities, and I don't want to digress too far, but I always think to myself, I have a feeling a lot of kids do, but
Yeah.
somehow only like 2 in her class of 16 are aware of them. So
Wow.
regardless, dairy and gluten are high sensitivities, and those are foods we avoid as a family.
Yeah. I
So
don't do
she was,
dairy either.
yeah,
Immediately gave up dairy.
And it makes me just cringe sometimes because people, when I really vocalize, go dairy free, go gluten free, like get rid of it. You don't need
Yep.
it. And the women that take my course, the first question is always, well, what are some good dairy alternatives? And my answer is just go without it. Like,
Yeah.
trust me, you're not going to find a dairy free cheese. Like, just don't even waste your money. Like, it's not worth it. It's not worth the health. Like, and the other thing is, like, you're talking about ingredient labels, and that's what I was mentioning with my 6-year-old. This summer, she went to a summer camp, and we had told the summer camp counselors, we don't do dairy, we don't do gluten. She came home that day, and for some reason, she was like, oh, they gave us gummy worms. And she was telling us all these different things that they had given her at camp. A couple of them had dairy in them. And so I just decided, you know what? Like, I can't count on like anyone else. Like, I've got to educate the child. So I told her, she's just now doing word recognition. Like, she's just now noticing the word the, right? And so
Yeah.
but this summer I was like, I started pulling things out and I started showing her the ingredient labels. And I was like, this is what you're looking for. So the few things that she looks for are like oils. What kinds of oils
Yes.
are in your food? And there are things like grapeseed oil and safflower oil, all these things that are not healthy for you whatsoever, that are being linked to chronic disease,
Mm-hmm.
are in everything, whether it's a protein bar or whatever. Like, I promise you, it's probably in there. Like, look at
Yeah,
the
you
ingredient
think
label.
you
So
think you grab a you think you're at the health food store and you're going down what you think is a healthy snack, like the plant-based snack, like you just want something to snack on, look at the oils. There's
yep.
literally the only thing that I found, unless I mean, is the siete chips
Yeah.
that has the fine oil. And then there's one popcorn. Oh gosh, it's the one with the Buddha on the front. That's an
Yeah.
avocado oil.
The lesser evil. Is that
Yes,
the
lesser
yeah.
evil. But I
Yeah.
mean,
Yeah. My kids eat the lesser evil snacks because they usually are coconut oil or avocado oil in
yep.
there. I'm like, why isn't everything like this? Like, it doesn't make any sense. Like, if one company can do it, I assure you that there are more out there that could.
Well, they are
Yeah.
going, I guarantee you they're going to be switching because now this is a new thing. They're realizing that all these oils are causing such a state of inflammation within our body.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay.
So I
So I have
watched
a
that.
few.
And then oh, sorry, go ahead.
Oh, yeah. Go for it. Go for it. You're
The
fine.
only other thing that I really changed and I say this, the oils and the sugar, because I also interviewed a doctor scientist recently on my podcast. And I said, what are the top 3 things that somebody should look at, whether you're going through a cancer diagnosis or not, but you just don't ever want a cancer diagnosis, is the oils, the sugar added, and the last thing is your water.
Mm-hmm.
And, so many people are getting plastic water bottles. And, I understand there's a situation where you just have to have a plastic water bottle when you're traveling. I get it. But like the quality of your water is really important. And even like people think, well, I have a fridge with a, what's it called?
Like
Can't
a
think.
filtration system.
Filtration with that's
Not the
typically
same.
not good enough.
Yeah.
And I use Berkey filter.
So do we.
Oh, you do? Okay. Yeah.
We do. I
So
love Berkey.
so do I. So that I know that is the other main thing that I changed was my water source.
Yeah. Yes, so good. I mean, and I actually, that's where I was going to take the conversation, was I wanted to touch on environmental estrogens. I just did a solo round on this a couple weeks ago, but it's becoming something. And my personal story is, with chronic migraine, and in my early 20s, I discovered that my trigger, after doing everything possible, maybe besides acupuncture, I was a Diamond Clinic, Mayo Clinic case of migraine. Nobody could figure out why my migraines were happening. And when I finally saw the right functional medicine doctor and had the right testing, she looked at me and said, you have no progesterone. Like, your estrogen is just through the roof, and your progesterone is not coming up enough, right? You have too wide of a ratio, and it's causing you to be extremely estrogen dominant, which is why she believed I was in a constant state of migraine. It was just what was happening in my body. And so, of course, I thought she was crazy, and she took me off of all modern pharmaceuticals that I had been guinea pigged on for several years, and said, nope, we're going to go cold turkey off of all of that. We're going to start you on bioidentical progesterone cream. We're going to get you changing, eliminating certain foods from your diet and starting these different estrogen eliminators, like these different supplements that I started taking for like liver methylation. And
which ones are you taking?
I take CDG, ester factors, DIM, and then I still take the bioidentical progesterone cream. I take, probiotics and things, digestive enzymes to make sure I'm eliminating. But the purpose of sharing this is because literally for the last close to 15 years, I've been going on and off of progesterone cream. It's been something that's kind of had to play a role for me. It's just, I don't know what causes my body to not want to produce enough progesterone. But regardless, it's interesting because here I was having tried a million pharmaceuticals, right? And nothing working. And you feel like I actually developed kidney stones as a result of the
Oh,
medication.
geez. Yeah.
But regardless, I started to see like, okay, I started to use this progesterone cream. And within 3 months of using it, my headaches were gone. My
Wow.
cycles became more regular. I didn't have the PMS and the menstrual cramping that I had before. Like so many things changed. And it was from this dime size amount of cream from a yam root that was going onto my wrist. And so that triggered this light bulb for me that was like, if this little drop of cream that's going on my wrist is transforming my life and literally giving me life, then what's happening with like the lotions that I'm putting on my skin
Oh,
and
yeah.
the shampoos and the makeup and all the different things that are going onto my body and things like air fresheners that are, you know, in my house that I'm consuming and breathing in. So I want to talk about environmental estrogens. What do you
Yeah.
what do you teach and what are your findings
Oh my
and all that?
gosh. So here's what I have to say about it is baby steps. Don't overwhelm yourself with it. Take one thing at a time and start replacing it as some, I mean, you can do it all at once if you want, but for me, I was like, okay, let me focus on skincare because skincare is super important for me. And you know, that's something we put on our body. And I use KPS products, KPS Essential Luxury Skincare. And it's complete, not only clean, it's literally like a superfood. So I do have a link, like a 10% off. It is a little bit pricey, but it's your skin and it doesn't have anything in it other than superfoods that can help in other things. So I slowly changed that out. I changed my makeup to cleaner products like Beauty Counter. I'm not an affiliate for that, but Beauty Counter has some great products. Changing out a really important thing for women is our deodorant, and Beauty Counter does have one. There's even a KPS, the KPS perfume you can use as a deodorant. You know, all of our products in the home are clean. They're all like, I mean, sometimes my cleaning lady will just use like apple cider or the cider or vinegar and water, like just clean products.
Mhm.
Um, Trying to think of what else.
Yeah, and I think that women out there don't realize that like you know it's not like you're consciously really making these choices. Like you just like for me, right? Like I grew up in a house that used bleach. I grew up in a house that
Oh
used
yeah.
like traditional cleaning products. And when
No,
I
we
first
don't use
started
cleaning
wearing,
sheets. No,
yeah,
I mean, like there's no air freshener, nothing like that going on in the house.
yeah,
Every product that is cleaning this house is a clean product.
yeah,
I think that, so I'm just in the middle, I'm almost finished with this integrative health practitioner. And I think there's 300 different toxins that are on a woman's body by the time they exit the house for work that day. Between
yeah,
our hair products, I really don't use any like hairspray or anything like that unless like once in a while I'm going to something. I don't use perfume. Like
mhm,
I am just super conscious about what I'm putting into my body
yeah.
because it really does matter. Oh, you know what else has the worst estrogen ever? And those that have small kids, don't let your kids play with this, are receipts.
Really?
Has the most estrogen is on receipts. So when somebody
Wow.
goes to hand me a receipt, I'm like, I'm good, thank you. I never take the receipt.
Interesting.
And I think about
Interesting.
the poor women who are touching a receipt all the day working at the register. Yes.
Wow. Wow.
Estrogen is, you just have to think it's in everything.
Yeah.
So you can't avoid it completely. You can't like go crazy and live in this bubble. I mean, we all have to live, right?
Yeah.
But because listen, I like to get my nails done and I like to wear lashes. Those are not totally clean, but I balance it out with other things. So I'm not
Mhm.
perfect. I'm not here to say I'm perfect, but I try
Yeah.
to do the best that I can.
Yeah. I was just thinking about that the other day when I was having my hair touched up and I was like,
Yeah.
you know what? There are some things that I'm not willing to change, but
I'm
you have
not
to
going gray.
decide, right? You got to decide like what do I want to
Yeah,
keep and what's easy to eliminate or change.
exactly.
Okay. When it comes to, you know, herbals and supplementation, I'd love for you to tell us like what you found or what you're using or things like that, whether it's related to detoxifying estrogen or otherwise.
Yeah. So, oh gosh. Well, it changes. So I'm not going to tell you exactly what I'm on for the herbals because it really depends on what you're going through. I think the best thing that women can start doing is drinking green tea. There's nothing better than green tea, especially somebody who's been diagnosed with breast cancer or cancer at all. Cancer hates tea. And also you have to look at where your tea is sourced. So somebody just getting tea, just like a generic tea with tea bags, a lot of tea bags are toxic. So I use Peak Tea, which has Peak Tea crystals. Or if you get loose leaf tea, that's better for you, like organic tea is great. But like I've been on like so many different herbal medicines. I will tell you, he has me because I am about to go through an explant surgery right now. So he really wants to work on my liver going into where I'm going to be put under general anesthesia. And then after he has me on, oh gosh, now I can't think of it. Oh my gosh, what is it? I'll think of it. I don't have it on I will come to it. But turmeric is a great one. I vitamin D is another really important. I think everybody in the world should be taking vitamin D. But get your levels checked. I really think it's important to get your levels checked and know your own levels. But most people are deficient in magnesium. I take melatonin at night. There's a lot of studies, research with melatonin and cancer and helping to eliminate cancer recurrence. So I take a high amount of melatonin at night, and plus I sleep so much better. Sleep is important too. Like getting your sleep on track, whether you have hormone issues, cancer, whatever, sleep is so important. It is, getting your room set up right to sleep. So we had somebody come in. We had this like, why they did this, I have no idea, but it's a window right above the bed and it's just a skinnier one. So not one that can so we had them come in and like make blinds for it, like blackout blinds and having it really cold at night. Like my boys are like freezing all the time. And I'm like, it's okay because mama's hot and mama needs to be happy. So I'm like, go put on a sweatshirt. But yeah, just having it like 68 degrees or sometimes even 67 and a fan, just whatever can bring you into that calming state for sleep.
Yeah, I'm so glad you mentioned that because that was actually a question I was going to ask was if you were on melatonin. I know that's usually like a first line of attack for a lot of doctors is to put breast cancer women on melatonin.
Oh, heck yes.
Yeah, and I know for me personally, I'm very sensitive to things like melatonin. So I have to be really careful I just don't need as much as other people do. Right. And so I think a lot of people get deterred. I had a client just recently who tried a new supplement that contained melatonin and she's like, oh my gosh, I couldn't wake up the next day. Like it was terrible. Really? And she just tossed it. And I said, no. Like, let's not toss it out the window. Like let's look at L-theanine and some other things that we can do to really help deepen your sleep and get that restorative sleep.
L-theanine is great too.
Yeah. For mood as well and anxiety.
Yeah, so I do drink a lot of tea. I'm trying to think if I missed anything else. I do, soy is a big controversy amongst women and saying that it can cause breast cancer. That's not the truth. You can Google it and see both sides to it, but if you look at the current research, soy products, as long as it's organic, non-GMO.
Yeah.
So you got to make sure, again, anything that I'm talking about, you need to make sure it's organic, non-GMO, sourced properly. Like I wouldn't get tofu at a restaurant that I don't know where they got their tofu from. And if I'm making it home a few times a week, I'm fine with it because it has a phytoestrogen, which helps get rid of the bad estrogen in our bodies. So there's studies that show women in Asia, they never dealt with breast cancer or it was really low breast cancer or had hormone issues from menopause or like hot flashes and stuff because that phytoestrogen that's in tofu helps eliminate that. So, but unfortunately now it's raising because they're bringing in the American diet. So.
Right. Yeah, I get that question a lot of, what about things like sweet potatoes and soy and all these things? And I'm like, well, you're consuming phytoestrogens. So you have to think about them from a perspective of, no, they're actually helping you fight that excess estrogen.
Yeah. I love sweet potatoes. I live by them.
Me too. I could eat them at every meal for sure. So I want to be mindful of your time, but as we sort of close things up, I do want to kind of come back to this, this idea of how you really embraced a positive mindset through your journey. And we've talked a lot about things that people can take away into their life as far as, supplementation, nutrition. We talked about meditation. All these things are awesome. And these are things that I preach on the podcast. But I also know that you have a unique story in the fact that Darren has sort of been navigating his own cancer journey, or should I call him Mr. Worldwide? I'm not sure.
Mr. Worldwide.
Mr. Worldwide. And then you mentioned yourself too. So I'm wondering, through all of this for yourself, especially, I'm assuming that, you had a support system, that you had sort of, friends or other family that was really there for you, and you sort of navigated it with that. So I'd love for you to sort of share from like an emotional perspective.
Mhm.
Obviously you kind of took control of your health, and then you have the medical, team on your side and whatnot, but what else was important for you? I have to imagine relationships were important too.
Yeah, definitely. I'm so blessed to have Darren. Like he has taught me so much about attitude and he helps me so much. And he's been my rock through this for sure. I interestingly enough, I think because I am like the strong person and what I put out into social media is always helping other women to thrive through it is so I think the perception of my family and friends around me just assume I'm always good. And they don't know that even though what I put out there in the world doesn't mean that I'm always good. So I didn't have that, to be honest. You do, like I said, most people going through it, you have it as you're going through the treatment. But when it ends, that kind of stops. So that's why I think it's so important for you. Because you can't, they don't know, you know what I mean? Like they don't understand. I don't think people understand unless they've truly been through a diagnosis. You really don't understand. Like a friend did actually say to me, "Oh, wait, you're struggling with this?" And I was like, she's like, "I didn't know it affected you like that." I'm like, it's a cancer diagnosis. How could it not have? But I think people just don't understand that. And I think you having a support team is really important, because your doctor's appointments are going to end. So if that's a therapist, like you need to have a therapist where you can talk through things. You need to have something else that you can like talk about it. Like I think our podcast show for Darren and I is so therapeutic. I'm sure it is for you too. Like, so I feel like it's therapeutic when I get on here. And even today, like just talking through this again is so helpful for me. So just hopefully you have a friend that's there. But if you don't, seeking somebody outside, whether it be an energy healer or acupuncturist or all the other different healing modalities that I talk about. And thankfully I have Darren who's been there with me and dealt with my crazy days and my really good days too. I have the majority of good days, but listen, we're not all perfect. The fear creeps in every once in a while.
Yeah, I love following you guys on social media because you always have a sense of humor and a sense of sort of, I don't know, like sarcasm, and there's just something
Yeah.
about you guys that you can see how you get through hard things because
Yes, we
you're
do.
yeah, you're so good together, and
And
yeah,
I
so
think like I feel like getting more spirituals really helps me too with meditation and prayer and all that is so helpful. Like every day when I wake up, I'm like I open up my eyes, I'm like, yes, that's a new day. Today is a gift because not everybody has that. Not everybody gets to wake up. So we have to like think about the first thing like what I do in the morning sets my whole day up for success. I wake up before the rest of the world. I mean, my household, I make coffee, I have downtime for myself. I listen to something that inspires me. I write down affirmations about my healing and how I'm feeling, and I plan out my day. And that brings me peace and calm. So it's really like making those plans, to set your day up for success to help you get through it as well.
yeah. So when it comes to your diagnosis and where you are now, can
Mhm.
you give us an update on, like, are you through the treatments, or
Yeah.
where are you on the journey now?
So I am, I had a lumpectomy. I went through radiation. I came so close to doing chemo. In fact, I almost bought a wig, but my oncologist and I decided if I had my ovaries removed, so they put me into menopause and put me on this aromatase inhibitor, which is a hormone blocking med. She felt comfortable with that. So I avoided chemo, thank God. And then I am right now having explant surgery in just a couple weeks here. I had breast implants prior to my diagnosis, just small ones, only because I was really into strength training and I literally looked like a boy. I didn't have any clothes that fit me. And I was like, I just want to feel like a girl. And so I had a lumpectomy. Once you have that breast radiated, there's a really high chance that implant can rupture, which it did. And so they called me and said, you can just exchange that implant. And I knew immediately I did not want the implants anymore. I want to just really, it's okay. And those that do have a double mastectomy and they get implants, what you need to do, what makes you happy. I'm happy to be getting these out.
Yeah. Yeah.
So
Well,
that's
good
where I'm
luck
at.
on.
And I feel really good. I've had so far so good. Everything's good. And I hopefully will continue on this journey of
Yeah.
feeling good.
Awesome. Do they do, I'm just curious, do they do like you do routine like hormone testing still, even, obviously sort of post menopause?
They
Do they still check?
haven't. And I will though with a functional doctor, but my doctor hasn't. They stick with you in the beginning checking hormones. They want to make sure you're going into menopause before you take this aromatase inhibitor.
Right, right,
So it's
right.
kind of more for that. And then that ends. But definitely, I think it's important to get your levels checked for sure. I'm sure you preach that all the time with a functional doctor
Yeah, for
because
sure.
it is important to know your body.
Yeah. 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 Again, I love that you're incorporating like the functional approach with everything else. So, all right, Jen, I want to be mindful of your time, but I'm so grateful. I took so many notes just for myself
Good.
too. I love your mindset and I love your approach to just sharing your story. I'd love for you to tell people, where can they find you? Where can they find your podcast, your book?
Yeah.
Tell us all the things.
Awesome. Okay. Yeah. So my book is Not Today Cancer, a non-typical survival guide that wants to thrive, not just survive. I've never called myself a survivor. I know some people do. I like to be a thriver. I mean, I want to survive, but I feel like thriving makes it even better. My podcast is Not Today Cancer, and I interview other women who've gone through it, or I'm interviewing experts on, estrogen, hormone health, all the things. And then my husband, Mr. Worldwide, we call him, he looks just like Pitbull, is with me on Fridays. And it's usually more of a lighthearted show. And yeah, I have a website, jendelveaux.com, but in my Instagram is Jen Delveaux. That's where I am most of the time. So JenDelVaux. And I'm assuming you'll have it in the show notes.
Yes, I will put all of that in the show notes so that people can just swipe up and click on it to make it
Yeah.
easy.
And I'll
But
give you
thank you.
that free link too for the unplug so that people
Yes.
can get the 30 days.
Yes, I made a note here for your KPS products and your
Oh yeah.
unplug. So we'll make
Yeah.
sure to get that in the show notes too. So thank you so much, Jen, for doing
Thanks
this
for
and
having me.
taking time out of your day and sharing your story. I know women listening will it's a story that they need to hear, and there's probably women listening to this who they'll feel like they've got a sort of a partner in the journey that they're in. So
Yeah.
again, thank you for being here, and you guys, I'll link up everything in the show notes as usual, but thank you guys for listening today, and we'll talk soon. Bye-bye.
Thank you.